My husband died and left me his house. My son said, "Sign it over to me. You'll die soon anyway." When those words came out of my son's mouth, I felt something inside me crack. Not break, not yet. Just crack. Like glass under too much pressure. I had spent 32 years raising him, sacrificing everything, and this was how he saw me. As an obstacle, as something temporary to be dealt with. What he didn't know was that his father had taught me one thing very well, and never let anyone make you feel small in your own home. Good day, dear listeners. It's Isabella again. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. My name is Eleanor Walsh, and I'm 71 years old. I live in Portland, Oregon, in a beautiful craftsman-style home that my husband Robert and I bought 43 years ago. Robert passed away on November 18th, 2022, after a sudden heart attack. We had been married for 46 years. 46 years of building a life together, raising our son Michael, planting gardens, and dreaming about retirement trips we would take together. Robert was a civil engineer. I was a high school English teacher for 37 years before I retired. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. We lived simply, saved carefully, and believed in helping family when they needed it. Our house sits on a corner lot with a massive oak tree in the front yard that's probably 100 years old. Robert built a wooden swing that hangs from one of its branches. He also spent every Sunday tending to his rose garden along the fence line. Those roses still bloom every spring, and every time I see them, I remember him kneeling there in his worn-out jeans, humming old Beatles songs. After Robert died, I kept his reading chair exactly where it was, by the window overlooking the garden. His glasses are still on the side table. Sometimes I sit across from it with my tea and talk to him. I tell him about my day, about the neighbors, about things I read. It brings me comfort. On the mantel above the fireplace, there's a photo from our 25th anniversary. We're standing on the Oregon coast, wind in our hair, laughing. I look at that photo every morning. Our son Michael is 49 years old. He's married to a woman named Courtney, and they have 2 children, Tyler, who's 23, and Madison, who's 20. For most of Michael's life, we had a good relationship. He was a loving son. He called regularly, visited for holidays, brought the grandkids over for Sunday dinners. Robert and I helped him with his college tuition, gave him money for his first car, and even helped with the down payment on his starter home back in 2001. That was $22,000. We were happy to do it. But something changed after Robert died. At first, I thought it was grief. Michael became distant, preoccupied. He stopped calling as often. When he did visit, he seemed impatient, checking his phone constantly. Courtney stopped making eye contact with me. The kids, who used to hug me and ask about Grandpa's roses, barely said hello. I told myself it was normal. Grief affects everyone differently. I gave them space. The first real sign came in February 2023, 3 months after Robert's funeral. Michael called me on a Tuesday afternoon. I remember because I had just come back from my book club at the library. He said they were having a financial emergency. Courtney's mother had medical bills, and they needed help. He asked for $8,000. He said it was temporary, that he'd pay me back within 2 months. What else would a mother do? I transferred the money that same evening. 2 months passed, no repayment, no mention of it. When I gently brought it up in April, Michael sounded annoyed. He said things were still tight, that I needed to be patient, that family helps family without keeping score. I felt guilty for even asking. I apologized. I actually apologized for wanting my money back. In June 2023, another call. This time it was $12,000. Michael said they were behind on their mortgage and facing foreclosure. He was frantic, saying they could lose everything. I didn't hesitate. I withdrew money from the savings account Robert and I had built over decades. I sent it immediately. Michael thanked me, said I was saving their lives, said he loved me. Again, no repayment. When I asked in August, he said I was being selfish, that I lived alone in a big house with no expenses while he was trying to raise a family. He said Robert would have wanted me to help. That comment stung more than anything. Using Robert's memory like that, the pattern continued. In September, another $7,000 for a business opportunity that would pay off huge. In November, $15,000 because Tyler needed it for something Michael wouldn't specify. In January 2024, another $10,000 for car repairs and medical bills. Every time it was urgent. Every time it was temporary. Every time I said yes. I started keeping a journal, not because I didn't trust him, at least that's what I told myself, but because the amounts were getting hard to track. I wrote down every transfer, every date, every excuse. By March 2024, the total was $62,000. $62,000 in just over a year. Money that Robert and I had saved through decades of careful budgeting. Money meant for emergencies, for health care, for leaving something behind for our family. I started cutting back on everything. I canceled the trip to visit my sister in Boston that I'd been planning. I postponed dental work I needed. I started buying generic brands at the grocery store and eating smaller portions to make food last longer. My friend Diane noticed I lost weight. She said I looked tired. I told her I was fine, but I wasn't fine. I was being drained dry, and some part of me knew it. In April 2024, I saw something on Facebook that made my stomach turn. Courtney had posted photos from a vacation in Maui. She and Michael were on the beach, drinks in hand, huge smiles. The caption read, "Finally getting the relaxation we deserve. Blessed life." The post was dated March 28th, 2024. Less than 2 weeks after Michael had called me, crying, saying they couldn't afford groceries and asking for another $5,000. $5,000 I had sent immediately, skipping my own medication refills to afford it. I stared at those photos for an hour. The turquoise water, the resort in the background, Courtney's designer sunglasses, Michael's expensive watch. I felt something shift inside me, something cold and clear. That evening, Tyler called me. He's always been the gentler of my 2 grandchildren. We used to be close. He asked how I was doing, and I said I was managing. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "Grandma, Dad said you're having memory problems, that you keep forgetting conversations. Is that true?" I gripped the phone tighter. "What?" "No, Tyler, I'm perfectly fine. Why would he say that?" There was a long pause. "He's been telling everyone you're getting forgetful, that you've been confused about money. He said he's worried about you living alone." I thanked Tyler for telling me and hung up. My hands were shaking. Michael was setting a narrative. He was planting seeds, telling people I was mentally declining. I understood why. If people thought I was confused, they wouldn't believe me if I ever accused him of taking advantage of me. They'd think I was a confused old woman who didn't understand her own finances. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Robert's empty side of the bed next to me, and I made a decision. I would document everything. I would find out exactly what was happening, and I would protect myself. The next morning, I went to my bank. I asked to speak with the manager, a kind woman named Patricia Morales, who had helped Robert and me for years. I showed her my records. I asked her to print out every transaction from the past 18 months. When she handed me the stack of papers, her face was grave. "Mrs. Walsh," she said quietly, "this is a lot of money going to one person." "I know," I said. "I need to understand exactly how much." We sat together in her office for 2 hours. Patricia helped me organize everything into a spreadsheet: transfers, withdrawals, dates, amounts. When we finished, The number at the bottom made my vision blur. $87,400. $87,000 in 16 months. Patricia asked me gently if I wanted to speak with someone about financial abuse. The words hit me like a physical blow. Abuse. My son was abusing me. She gave me a card for a local attorney who specialized in elder law and family financial disputes. Attorney Barbara Hendricks. I took the card. I thanked Patricia, and I walked out of that bank a different woman than the one who had walked in. That evening, Michael called. He needed money again. $18,000 this time. Some investment opportunity that couldn't wait. He was using his urgent voice, the one that had always worked on me before. But this time, I heard it differently. I heard the manipulation, the practiced desperation. I told him I needed to think about it. He exploded. Think about it? Mom, this is time sensitive. I need an answer now. Then the answer is no, I heard myself say. Silence. Then, what did you say? I said no, Michael. I can't keep doing this. His voice turned cold. Can't or won't? Both. He hung up on me. 10 minutes later, Courtney called, screaming about how selfish I was, how I was going to ruin their lives, how Robert would be ashamed of me. I hung up on her. The text messages started that night. At first, they were angry, then pleading, then threatening. You're really going to abandon your own son? We've done everything for you, and this is how you repay us? Fine. Don't expect us to take care of you when you're really old and sick. You'll regret this. I saved every single message. 2 days later, on a Saturday morning, Michael showed up at my house. I watched him through the window as he got out of his car, his face set in that expression I remembered from when he was a teenager and didn't get his way. I didn't open the door right away. I stood there, my hand on the doorknob, gathering my strength. When I finally opened it, he pushed past me without waiting for an invitation. We need to talk, he said. Then talk, I replied, standing in my own doorway, refusing to be pushed around in my own home. He looked around the living room, at the furniture Robert and I had collected over decades, at the photos on the walls, at the house we had built our life in. Then he looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Calculation. Mom, this house is too much for you. You can barely maintain it. The yard's getting overgrown. You're here all alone. It doesn't make sense. The yard is fine. I have a gardener who comes twice a month, and I like living alone here. This is my home. It was Dad's home, he corrected, and now he's gone. You should sell it. Or better yet, sign it over to me. I can manage it, rent it out, and you can move into a nice retirement community, somewhere with people your own age, where someone can keep an eye on you. I don't need anyone to keep an eye on me. Tyler said you've been confused, forgetting things. I haven't forgotten a single thing, Michael. Not one transfer, not $1, not one lie. His eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? $87,400. That's what I'm talking about. That's how much I've given you since your father died. And I haven't seen a single penny back. That was help. Family help. You offered it freely. You asked for it under false pretenses. You said you were facing foreclosure while you were vacationing in Maui. His face flushed red. You're spying on us now? Looking at our social media? That's pathetic, Mom. Really pathetic. What's pathetic is a grown man manipulating his widowed mother out of her life savings. He stepped closer to me, and for the first time in my life, I felt afraid of my own son. You need to be very careful about what you're accusing me of. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm stating facts. Facts? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Your facts don't mean anything. Everyone knows you've been declining. Everyone knows you're confused about money. If you start spreading lies about me, about Courtney, no one will believe you. They'll just think it's sad. A lonely old woman making things up for attention. Get out of my house! This should be my house, he shouted. And there it was. The truth. The thing he'd been circling around for months. Dad should have left it to me. I'm his son. Instead, he left everything to you, and you're just sitting here, wasting it, wasting away in this big empty house that you don't even need. Robert left me this house because it's my home, because we built this life together, and you will never have it. Not now. Not ever. Now get out. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he smiled, and it was the cruelest smile I'd ever seen. You'll die soon anyway, he said softly. You're old. You're alone. And when you do, everything will be mine regardless. I just thought I'd save us both some time. Then he walked out. I stood in my living room, shaking, tears streaming down my face. Not tears of sadness, tears of rage, of betrayal so profound I could barely breathe through it. I picked up attorney Barbara Hendricks' card. My hands were steady as I dialed. She answered on the third ring. I explained who I was, how I got her number, and gave her a brief overview of the situation. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Mrs. Walsh, how soon can you come to my office? I'd like to review all your documentation. Monday morning, I said. First thing. I'll be ready. And Mrs. Walsh, you did the right thing by calling. That weekend was the longest of my life. I organized everything. Bank statements, text messages, screenshots of the Maui vacation photos, the journal I'd been keeping. I created a timeline with dates and amounts. I wrote down every conversation I could remember, every excuse Michael had given, every promise to pay me back. On Monday morning, May 6th, 2024, I walked into Barbara Hendricks' office at 9 a.m. sharp. She was in her mid-50s, with sharp eyes and silver-streaked dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her handshake was firm. Her office was lined with law books and framed degrees from University of Oregon School of Law. Tell me everything, she said. I did. It took 2 hours. She took notes, asked clarifying questions, and reviewed every document I'd brought. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and folded her hands. Mrs. Walsh, what your son has done is called financial exploitation of an elderly person. In Oregon, this is taken very seriously. Based on what you've shown me, we have an extremely strong case. The question is, how far do you want to take this? As far as it needs to go, I said without hesitation. She nodded. Then here's what we're going to do. Over the next week, Barbara worked quickly. She filed a civil lawsuit against Michael and Courtney for financial elder abuse, fraud, and conversion. She also contacted the district attorney's office to report potential criminal financial abuse. She helped me draft a cease and desist letter demanding they stop all contact with me. She worked with my bank to freeze any future transactions to Michael's accounts and to flag my account for additional security. On May 15th, 2024, Michael and Courtney were served with the lawsuit. Michael called me 37 times that day. I didn't answer once. Courtney left voicemails screaming that I was destroying their family, that I was a vindictive old woman, that they'd fight me with everything they had. Barbara sent them a formal letter. All communication was to go through her office. Any attempt to contact me directly would result in additional harassment charges. The messages stopped, but other things started. Michael began calling other family members, trying to get them on his side. He called my sister Janet in Boston, telling her I'd had a mental breakdown and was being manipulated by an attorney who was after my money. Janet called me immediately. Eleanor, what on earth is going on? I explained everything. Every dollar, every lie, every manipulation. When I finished, Janet was furious. That son of a gun, she said. Eleanor, I'm so sorry. What can I do? Just believe me, I said. That's all I need. I do believe you. And if you need me to testify to anything, you call me. Michael also tried to turn Tyler and Madison against me. Madison, unfortunately, believed her father's version. She sent me a text saying I was tearing the family apart and that she was ashamed of me. It hurt, but I understood. She was 20 years old, and her father was very convincing. But Tyler was different. Tyler called me. "Grandma, I need to know the truth. Dad says you're suing him for no reason, that you're confused and angry about Grandpa dying and taking it out on him. But that doesn't sound like you." I told him everything. I sent him copies of the bank statements. I showed him the text messages. I showed him the timeline. "Oh my God," he said quietly. "Grandma, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, sweetheart. What he said to you, that you'd die soon anyway, Grandma, that's evil. I can't believe he's my father." Tyler became one of my strongest supporters. He told me he'd testify if needed. He also confronted his father, and Michael threw him out of the house, told him he was ungrateful and disloyal. Tyler moved in with his girlfriend and stopped speaking to his parents. The legal process moved forward. Discovery began. Barbara subpoenaed Michael and Courtney's financial records. What we found was stunning. Not only had they taken $87,000 from me, but they had spent it on luxury items, vacations, and investments that had nothing to do with the emergencies they'd claimed. The foreclosure they were facing never happened. Their mortgage was current. The medical bills for Courtney's mother didn't exist. Courtney's mother was on Medicare and had supplemental insurance. She had no outstanding bills. They had lied about everything. Even worse, we discovered they had taken out a credit card in my name without my knowledge. They'd racked up $14,000 in charges before the credit card company flagged it as fraud. Barbara immediately reported this to the police. Detective Raymond Chen from the Portland Police Department opened a fraud investigation. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, credit card statements, text messages where Michael had specifically stated things he knew were lies. Courtney's social media posts bragging about purchases and vacations during the exact times they were claiming poverty. In August 2024, the criminal case moved forward. Michael and Courtney were charged with financial exploitation of an elderly person, fraud, identity theft, and forgery. These were serious charges carrying potential jail time. Barbara also moved forward aggressively with the civil case. We weren't just seeking the return of the $87,000. We were seeking damages for emotional distress, punitive damages for their egregious conduct, and attorney's fees. In September, Barbara called me with news. "They want to settle," she said. "Absolutely not," I replied. "I thought you'd say that. Good, because I think we should take this all the way." The trial was scheduled for November 2024. As the date approached, I felt surprisingly calm. I'd been dreading this confrontation, but now that it was here, I felt ready. I had the truth on my side. I had evidence. I had Barbara, and I had rage, the kind of cold, focused rage that comes from being betrayed by the person you loved most in the world. On November 12th, 2024, I walked into the Multnomah County Courthouse. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, wood-paneled and formal. The judge was the Honorable Patricia Morrison, a woman in her early 60s with steel gray hair and intelligent eyes. She had a reputation for being fair but tough. Michael and Courtney sat at the defendant's table with their attorney, a nervous-looking man named Gregory Sutton. Michael wouldn't look at me. Courtney stared straight ahead. Her jaw clenched. The trial lasted 3 days. Barbara presented our evidence methodically and devastatingly. Bank statements showing every transfer. Text messages showing Michael's lies. Screenshots of the vacation photos. Tyler testified, explaining what his father had told family members about my supposed mental decline. Patricia from the bank testified about the unusual pattern of withdrawals. Detective Chen testified about the fraudulent credit card. I testified for 4 hours. Barbara walked me through every request for money, every excuse, every broken promise. She asked me to read aloud some of Michael's text messages, including the ones where he threatened me. When I read the words, "You'll die soon anyway," I saw several jurors flinch. Michael's attorney tried to argue that these were gifts, not loans, that I'd given the money freely, that there was no documentation requiring repayment. But Barbara demolished this argument. She showed that Michael had specifically promised repayment in multiple text messages. She showed that he'd obtained the money through false pretenses by lying about emergencies. Michael took the stand in his own defense. It was a mistake. Barbara cross-examined him ruthlessly. She confronted him with every lie, every contradiction. She showed him the photos from Maui and asked him to explain how he could afford a luxury vacation while claiming he couldn't buy groceries. He had no answer. He stammered. He claimed I was misremembering. He said the vacation had been a gift from Courtney's parents, but Barbara produced credit card statements showing that he had paid for it himself, with money he'd received from me 2 weeks earlier. Courtney didn't testify. Her attorney advised against it. On November 15th, 2024, both sides gave closing arguments. Barbara's was powerful. She talked about trust, about the sacred bond between parent and child, about how my son had exploited my grief and my love to steal from me. She talked about how he'd tried to paint me as mentally incompetent to cover his tracks. She talked about the cruelty of telling a grieving widow that she'd die soon anyway. Eleanor Walsh is not confused, Barbara said, looking directly at the jury. She is not incompetent. She is a woman who loved her son, who trusted him, and who was betrayed in the most fundamental way. She is here today not for revenge, but for justice, and justice is exactly what she deserves. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they came back, the 4 women stood. In the matter of Walsh versus Walsh, we find for the plaintiff on all counts. I closed my eyes. Relief washed over me. Judge Morrison asked about damages. The jury awarded me the full $87,400 in compensatory damages. Then they awarded an additional $75,000 in punitive damages, finding that Michael and Courtney's conduct had been malicious, oppressive, and in reckless disregard of the plaintiff's rights. $162,400, plus attorney's fees, which came to another $38,000. Judge Morrison also issued a permanent restraining order. Michael and Courtney were prohibited from contacting me in any way, coming within 500 feet of my home, or attempting any further financial transactions involving my accounts. In the criminal case, which concluded in January 2025, Michael pleaded guilty to financial exploitation and fraud to avoid trial. He was sentenced to 18 months in prison, though with good behavior, he'd likely serve 10 months. Courtney pleaded guilty to conspiracy and received probation and 300 hours of community service. As part of the plea deal, they agreed not to appeal the civil judgment. They were required to begin repayment immediately. The consequences for them were catastrophic. To pay the judgment, they had to sell their house. They'd been living in a beautiful 4-bedroom home in a nice neighborhood. It sold for $460,000. After paying off their mortgage and other debts, the equity went to me as part of the judgment. They also had to sell Courtney's luxury SUV. They lost the timeshare condo they'd bought in Bend. Their savings accounts were drained. Courtney had to take a second job. Michael lost his job while he was in prison, and when he got out, he struggled to find new employment with a criminal record. Their marriage didn't survive. Courtney filed for divorce while Michael was still incarcerated. She claimed he'd manipulated her into the scheme, though the evidence clearly showed she'd been a willing participant. Madison sided with her mother and refused to speak to Michael. In March 2025, about 4 months after the trial, I saw Michael in a grocery store. I was in the produce section, selecting tomatoes, when I looked up and there he was, 10 feet away. He'd lost weight. He looked older, worn down. He saw me at the same time. We stared at each other for a long moment. I waited for some feeling to surface: anger, sadness, regret, something. But I felt nothing. Just a quiet, settled certainty. He opened his mouth as if to say something, then closed it. Then he turned and walked away. I watched him go, then went back to selecting my tomatoes. They had lovely heirloom varieties that day. I bought several. With the money from the judgment, I did several things. First, I set up educational trust funds for Tyler and Madison, $20,000 each. Madison didn't deserve it, given how she treated me, but I did it anyway because she was young and had been lied to by her parents. Maybe someday she'd understand. I donated $50,000 to a local organization that helps victims of elder financial abuse. They do incredible work providing legal assistance and counseling to seniors who've been exploited by family members. I also started volunteering there twice a week, sharing my story and helping others find the courage to stand up for themselves. I took the trip to Boston to visit my sister Janet. We spent 2 weeks together, laughing, reminiscing, healing. I hadn't realized how much I needed that time with her. I hired a contractor to renovate Robert's rose garden. We expanded it, added a beautiful stone pathway, installed a bench where I can sit and read. I planted new varieties of roses in colors Robert would have loved: deep reds, sunset oranges, pure whites. The garden is thriving now, more beautiful than ever. I also started taking better care of myself. I went to the dentist and got the work I'd been postponing. I bought myself some new clothes, nice ones, not the clearance rack items I'd been restricting myself to. I joined a watercolor painting class at the community center and discovered I'm actually quite good at it. My instructor, a lovely woman named Sandra, says I have a natural eye for color and composition. I'm healthier now than I've been in years. My doctor says my blood pressure has improved. I've put back on the weight I'd lost, and I sleep through the night again. My friend Diane says I look 10 years younger. I feel it too. Most importantly, I have peace. I live in my home, Robert's, and my home, on my own terms. I tend the roses. I read in Robert's chair by the window. I paint watercolors of the garden. I volunteer helping others. I have dinner with friends. I video chat with Tyler every Sunday, and we're rebuilding our relationship. He's doing well, working as a graphic designer and engaged to a wonderful young woman named Olivia. I don't hate Michael. I've thought about this a lot, examined my feelings carefully. What I feel is profound disappointment and sadness for what he could have been versus what he chose to be. But I don't hate him. Hate would give him power over me, and I've taken all my power back. Some people have asked if I feel guilty for sending him to prison. I don't. He made choices. He committed crimes. He faced consequences. That's not cruelty. That's justice. Others have asked if I'd ever reconcile with him. I don't think so. Some betrayals are too fundamental, too complete. He didn't just steal money from me. He tried to steal my dignity, my autonomy, my sense of reality. He told me I'd die soon as if my life had no value, as if I was nothing more than an obstacle to his inheritance. You don't come back from that, but I have come back. I've come back to myself, to the woman I was before grief and manipulation made me small, to the woman Robert fell in love with 50 years ago, strong, clear-eyed, unafraid. I learned several important things through this experience. First, trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, it probably is. I ignored that feeling for too long because I wanted to believe the best of my son. Second, document everything. If I hadn't kept records, I would have had no case. Third, seek help. I couldn't have done this alone. Barbara, Patricia at the bank, Detective Chen, my sister Janet, my friend Diane, Tyler, they all helped me stand up for myself. Fourth, you're never too old to fight back. Age doesn't make you powerless. It gives you experience, wisdom, and perspective. And finally, the most important lesson, You teach people how to treat you. For too long, I accepted Michael's disrespect, his manipulation, his casual cruelty. I taught him that I would tolerate it. When I stopped tolerating it, when I stood up and said no more, everything changed. I wish I'd done it sooner, but I'm grateful I did it at all. My life now is quiet, peaceful, and entirely my own. I wake up when I want. I eat what I want. I spend my money on things that bring me joy. I answer to no one. I'm surrounded by people who genuinely care about me, and I sleep soundly every night in the home I built with the man I loved, knowing that I honored his memory by refusing to let anyone take it from me. Robert would be proud of me. I know he would. Sometimes I sit in his chair and I can almost feel him there, smiling, telling me he always knew I was tougher than I looked. I think he's right. So I ask you, if family betrayed you, would you fight back? What would you do? Would you have the courage to stand up for yourself, even when it means going against the people you love? Would you choose justice over keeping the peace? I hope you never have to make that choice. But if you do, I hope my story gives you strength. You are not powerless. You are not too old. You are not confused or wrong or selfish for protecting yourself. You matter. Your dignity matters. Your life matters. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more stories. I read every comment, and your support means more to me than you know. Thank you for listening.